What, at your home office?
Yeah, I'm home. I got home in the nick of time.
Did you? What's going on? Anything good?
Not much. Not much. Just been busy. One of the things you may want to say also in the intro, I don't know if you know this, pretty cool. We just executed an agreement. We did a press release. I don't know if you saw the other one, but we just did a press release to call the Securities Investment Clinic at Pace Law School the Fairbridge Investor Clinic at
That's
Pace Law
cool.
School.
That's cool.
Yeah, and we're working with the FBI, FINRA, U.S. Attorney's Office.
Oh, that's cool.
It's really cool. Gives
What's
us
the
instant
strategy with that?
credibility
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the strategy with that?
to help investors that have been taken advantage of.
Gotcha. Well, I'm sure. Look, I mean, again, I'm no expert by any means, but you have to think that there's still got to be a ton of Madoff like schemes that are shaken out due to COVID. No,
Well, that's why the school has a program like this
gotcha.
to police it all. They work with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with FINRA,
Oh, that's
OFAC,
cool.
all the agencies, and it's good. So we oversee it.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
What is that like in effect now, or that's something that
It's in
you're working on?
effect.
Oh, that's
They
cool.
actually have a big sign up in the school called the
Oh, that's cool.
Fairbridge Investor Rights Clinic. It's really cool.
Very nice. When are you taking over? When are they going to call it John Lettera University? Anytime soon?
I told the dean I want the school named in the next couple of years. I'll have it named after me. That's a much larger gift.
That's funny. That is funny. All right, let's see here. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that as time goes on, even if rates continuously rise, do you actually see hard money, private money rates rising along with it? Has to, right?
Somewhat. I don't think they're going to rise
Yeah.
that much. I mean, I don't know when you started doing hard money, Jeff, but I don't think we're ever going to see the 16 and 4 days come back.
I mean, look, the first hard money loan that I ever took was with your longtime friend Mario Costanz. I told you this, and we flipped 1535 Vice Avenue. We bought it, and Ronnie Clark gave us 18 and 4.
Crazy.
Ronnie Clark was like, "Yeah, I'll give you 100." You remember Ronnie Clark, right?
Absolutely. I did.
I'll give you
many deals with him.
100%. I'll give you 100%. I'm like, all right, give us whatever you want. 18 and 4, all right, You'll appreciate this. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but we'll just chop it up before people get on. So it was the summer of 2008. It was August. I had just gotten a call from my receivers coach, who they just cut me at Fordham in the spring. So like I'm done. Like I'm out now, spring game done. So talk about May, June, July, nothing. All I've been doing was hit the pavement, pound the pavement, right? But I was getting business. I was dealing with all Bronx business, but I had gone to my dad's house for whatever. It was the summertime, like it's August, right? And it was like a Tuesday afternoon. Never forget this. And I get out of the shower and I have like 15 missed calls from a client, right? And I'm like, why is this lady calling me 15 times? And she's like, oh, I talked to this attorney. He told me that you're a broker, you're not a banker, you charge excessive fees, points, and all this stuff. Now I'm an hour and a half into Jersey. Like I just came out of the shower, right, from like a workout. And I'm like, who's the attorney? They're like, Ronnie Clark. I'm like, I don't know who that is. So I was call him up, 718-515-6000, I think is his number still to this day. And I drove literally at like 2:00 in the afternoon from my dad's house all the way to the Bronx to show up at this guy's office. Like, look, I don't know who you are. So I show up in his office. I walk right in. And there's like this 80-year-old man, right, sitting behind his desk. Files everywhere.
Tiny guy. He's small,
tiny,
very
frail,
small.
Loved his grandkids and loved his golf, right? And basically, I went at him, and he was like, "Oh, he's like, you know what? Why don't we just do business?" He's like, "You can't make me your bank attorney." Meanwhile, he didn't know my father owned the mortgage company, right? So I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll make one call and make you my bank attorney." So I left out of there with him as my bank attorney, and we probably closed 700-800 deals together, But it was funny because like that was his game back in the day, like strong arm people. He obviously owned a piece of the title company, He was getting all this, I think it was Citibank or somebody's, all their bank work. And then that was it, But then we really had a great relationship for many years. And then when the market kind of shifted, he wound up pulling the same trick over again and wound up actually plugging another mortgage company into one of my real estate accounts to give him all the business. So it was kind of like an ugly doing, but that's unfortunately how business gets done.
Unfortunately,
you know,
I could see him doing that, unfortunately, but
he told me from like the 70s and 80s, he was literally the only bank attorney in town. Like he was like the only option for like 30 years.
I listen. I
TBD.
started I started in the business in '89 and did a couple of deals with him. We did a few transactions together.
Sure.
Wasn't a big fan of his, but
No.
had a mutual respect for each other.
Yeah.
And what I always say, what I enjoy is years later, he actually asked me to represent him. So I represented
Oh,
him
that's cool.
on 6 or 7 deals, which is
Oh.
always sort of a
Well,
compliment.
he made his money. I think it was in like McDonald's franchise or Burger King. He owned like the first McDonald's or Burger King franchise in Times Square, like before Times Square was Times Square.
Yeah,
There
he
was like
got
some
into
great.
he got into a lot of different businesses. I mean, we represented him on MRI machine. He was buying properties. I don't know if you know, he probably talked to you about it and was
Yeah.
doing special upgrades to the property in order that they could put MRI
Sure.
machines and needed capital. So
Yeah.
just an interesting guy.
Yeah, he was a legend. One of those guys, like I always called him Grandpa, and then his assistant Marie, who was an old timer from Throgs Neck. I called her grandma. I was 21, 22. We just like, just had a great relationship. We had a really great run together. It was nice. And again, like, look, when people, get desperate or their ego gets too big, unfortunately, sometimes it's more valuable to cut that cord.
Absolutely.
So we got 8 people on now. People will probably start trickling in as time goes on. So a little brief introduction. It was about 2014. I had sent a broker a hard money deal. The broker had sent this guy a deal that I didn't know at the time. And after like 3 months of no reply, no answer, I finally was forwarded an email chain. And on the bottom of the email chain, it said the guy, and the guy's name was John Lettera. From there, we formed a very, very solid, friendship and relationship. We've done millions of dollars of deals together, dozens of transactions. And I think at this point, fast forward, I can't believe it's 2022. We have a very strong relationship, both professionally and interpersonally. We've pulled off some deals together that are unheard of. I always like getting the calls. There's no way you can get this deal done, and we get it done. I also like making the call to John, like, hey, John, I need you for 5 minutes because we got to close this deal tomorrow. And John doesn't back down from that. The goal of this call is not only to introduce John, tell you about his 33 or so years in the hard money lending game and experience, but where John has gone from to where he is today, as well as I want John to, in his own words, define real hard money, not this fake hard money that people are pumping out in the streets as institutional capital, selling to Wall Street, like the real hard money game where if you have to close a deal for a borrower with 500 credit scores by tomorrow or they lose the property, how we've been able to successfully build and scale our business, as well as how John looks at deals, analyzes deals, and how he wants you to send us deals. So with all that being said, the guy with the best tan, the biggest muscles in all Westchester County, Lower Connecticut, John Lettera.
Thanks, Jeff. So tell me where you want me to start. I'll start anywhere you want. I could go a little bit into my backstory, how I got started.
Yeah, let's start in 1989 as being a Bronx kid. That's what I think you should start.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. So again, as Jeff mentioned, born and raised in the Bronx, and I have an upward trajectory throughout my career, which sort of takes a couple of different turns and avenues, but I'll give you the brief history. I served in the Marine Corps, came out of the Marines, had a few dollars saved up. Any of you with a military or combat background would know that one of the benefits of being in the military during combat, and I did most of my time in the military in Iraq and in the Middle East, but you have something called direct deposit, which actually turned out to be one of the best things that could have ever happened, because when I came out of the Marine Corps, came home, had about $30,000 saved up just because the government's putting your paycheck from the military in your bank account. So you're forced to just save it up and obviously are not spending money overseas. So in any event, came home, wanted to do something with that, and went to my father at the time, told my father, hey, I got a few dollars saved up. I really want to get into the real estate business. Can you have any suggestions? You have anything that I could do? father introduces me to his attorney at the time, and I started purchasing a couple of very small properties in the Bronx. Purchased my first property, second property, third property, got it up to about 4 or 5 properties, and really got my hands dirty and learned a lot about real estate back in the late 80s, very early 90s, just purchasing properties. But what I learned about purchasing properties and how I took it to that next level is I realized that I don't want to be the guy purchasing all these properties and having to go to the hard money guys in order to get the money. And then back in the days, institutions and banks were not looking at someone like me who wanted 90% loan to values. I really didn't have any income at the time. So I was forced to use the local hard money lenders in order to get these properties until I stabilized the properties and was then able to get institutional financing and refi out. So not much has changed. But what I did was I took a step back and said, wait a minute, if I model this out, I don't want to be the guy buying the property, even if I'm refining out, I want to be the guy making the loan. And that was my first introduction into hard money. I started to learn more and more about how these gentlemen or ladies at the time were doing. Unfortunately, it was all gentlemen, but how they were perfecting hard money. And I really started to learn about hard money. And just to give you a sense of what hard money was in 1989, 90, 91, 92, it was a very close-knit group. Institutions were not doing bridge lending or hard money at the time. Rates, if you wanted to pay your interest monthly with a very, very short interest reserve, rates were 16 and 4. You didn't like it? Too bad. Anyone you went to, it was 16 and 4. If you wanted to pay your interest at the end and let it accrue and balloon for 6 months or 12 months, interest was 18 and 4. That was it. No questions
Just so
asked.
everyone knows, 16 and 4, 18 and 4, that means 16% annual rate or 18% annual rate and 4 points up front. So if you want $1 million loan, you're paying 16%, which is $160,000 in annual interest. And if it's 4 points, you're paying $40,000 upfront to access that money, kind of like a credit card and a cash advance. So when you hear 12 and 2, 16 and 4, 8 and 1, first number is always the interest rate. Second number is always the points.
Yeah, so if you start modeling out, even on an IRR basis, internal rate of return, what I noticed was even by purchasing properties and refining out, and I'm putting aside maybe the increase in equity over 20 or 30 years, but just looking more at the shorter term, you do much better as a lender than you do as an owner. And I could get into this a little bit more later, but even becoming a little bit more financial savvy and with some financial engineering, I still believe that you could do much better as a lender than you can as an owner. But like I said, we could get into that a little bit later. So in any event, just to shorten up the story here, I learned everything I could possibly learn about lending. I realized that being a lender is extremely legal intensive, a lot of legal work involved, which is why at the time, just about 99% of all the hard money lenders were lawyers. So for me, it was just a natural progression to go to law school. Went to law school with the sole purpose of getting into this business and the lending business. And I always like to tell the story. When I first started lending, I knew the Bronx. I was born and raised in the Bronx. I went to school in the Bronx. So I would only lend in the Bronx. I would not go outside of the Bronx. The minute I heard that there was a deal, even if it was in Westchester, I mean, Westchester was, I needed a passport to get into Westchester. I wasn't going to Westchester. I wasn't going to Connecticut. I didn't even like Manhattan, Brooklyn. I wasn't in anywhere but the Bronx. So for many years, and I did very well. I just built my business by lending where I know. And that was in the Bronx. Fast forward a couple of years, maybe I did that for 6, 7, 8 years, however many years, learned the business, really dived into the business with everything I have, and realized that in order to grow, I definitely needed to diversify. So to me, diversification at that point was, all right, maybe I'll go into Brooklyn, do a couple of deals in Queens, do a couple of deals in Manhattan. Then eventually that even morphed into diversifying even more. And after the tri-state area, I did a lot of stuff in Jersey, started doing more in Connecticut. I got into Florida, started doing deals in Illinois, and obviously fast forward to today, we're now a national fund doing deals in all 50 states. But the lesson that I truly learned by even just diversifying in the tri-state area, and even forget the tri-state area, let's just talk about New York City, right? I was so used to doing deals in the Bronx that, and this still is the case today. And Jeff, I'm sure you could appreciate this, that you go to court in the Bronx, or you're doing a deal in the Bronx, and then you eventually do a deal in Brooklyn and Queens. It's like being in a different country.
Whole
The
different
court
world.
systems are completely different. The way judges look at the foreclosure actions are completely different. The way everything works, even down to the filing systems, even though everything is now on ACRIS, which is the filing system for the city of New York. But even depending on your jurisdiction, even your filings and your affidavits and all your legal documents are different. So it was truly a great testament to learn that you need to understand and really, really know the jurisdiction that you're in. Fast forward again, just kind of like bringing it full circle to where we are today. This was great. This worked out fantastic for many, many years, where I was doing these deals. They started to get larger. I remember starting off, I was only doing $50,000, $100,000 deals, $200,000 deals, worked my way up to $500,000 deals. Now where, I mean, Jeff knows I don't really like to look at anything below a large number. We won't get into the numbers.
Every day that number goes up like inflation. That's all I know.
I mean, we're now at a point now we're doing $100 million deals, which is great. But again, it's still that trajectory of learning how that works and how the real estate works. Because the one thing that I can tell you for sure is that if we're closing on $100 million deal, there truly is no different paperwork and no different due diligence than if we're doing a closing on a $100,000 deal. But the one thing I truly realized in doing all this, and it was a great piece of advice that I once got, and it was truly an eye-opener, is real estate is great. However, the way I was doing real estate, which was doing loans on a deal-by-deal basis, bringing in investors, put aside all the financial engineering that we were doing, maybe leveraging some deals, leveraging a portfolio, getting leverage across all the properties. At the end of the day, I realized that I still had to go out, find those deals, and I'm only becoming as big. And even though we were on a national level, and even though we were doing hundreds of millions of dollars in transactions, we're only as big as our deal flow. I wasn't at that point creating any enterprise value. And for me, it was very, very important to really try to start creating an enterprise value, because now as I get a little bit older, and I'm not at retirement age yet, but as I do get a bit older, now I'm starting to think about a liquidity event and what's down the road. So that's why now our fund has been repositioned and rebalanced as a REIT. We are a real estate investment trust, and we are a national real estate investment trust. And what that did for us is really give us the wherewithal to have what's known as sticky capital, more capital. We can go out to the public markets at some point in the future. Right now, we're a private REIT. We're waiting for the proper time to take the REIT public. And people, I always get the question, just to kind of skip ahead a little bit. I know Jeff has asked me this question, and many people always ask me, well, why just debt? Why not an equity fund? Why don't you want to get in and own, and maybe, and even when we're structuring transactions, right? I mean, one of the questions I always get is, if we're structuring a transaction and that transaction is being priced at 12, 13% and 2 points, well, a borrower or a sponsor historically will always come up and ask, hey, can you lower the interest rate, but we'll give you a 10% equity kicker at the end? And my answer for the last 30 years has always been, I don't want any equity kickers. I hope you make a fortune. I just want my 12 or 13%. That's it. I like controlling the capital stack. I like being aggressive in the capital stack. We will take any position in the capital stack that you need us to take. We'll come in as your senior debt, sub debt, mezzanine debt, preferred, cross collateralized. We could get creative with your equity, where we'll take a pledge of interest and lien by UCCs, or however you want us to lien your equity position. So we're definitely willing to get very, very creative. And the reason I never really wanted to get involved in the equity is I truly believe, and I learned, like I said, very early on, that lending gives you a backstage pass to understanding real estate. You truly get to see every aspect of real estate when you're looking at it from the lens of a lender. We're reviewing title reports, environmental reports, violations, certificates of occupancy, surveys, you name it. We're looking at it. We need to have not a firm understanding of everything, but we need to have a good understanding, work with all of our third-party professionals on every aspect of the real estate transaction. So, Jeff, I hope that kind of answered your question and gave you a little bit of background and shed some light on what we do and how we went from just a lender who started off just lending in the Bronx to, we now have almost a $500 million out nationally across the country.
So yeah, and thank you obviously for taking the time and sharing everyone your story. I just thought of your book title. When you write your first book, we gotta call it From Bronx to a Billion. I think that's a cool title, right? Also,
well, we're not stopping at $1 billion, but that's all right.
Yeah, I said the first book. The second book will be From a Billion to 10 billion, right? What I really would like you to do is really touch on, from your experience, of what makes a great, not a good, a great referral source. What makes a great broker in the space? Because everyone that's going to be watching this call, right, or is on this call now, is thinking, how can I have a relationship with John Lettera and his company? How can I do hard money in my market? And what do I need? What do I need to collect? How do I even position myself? Not, hey, John, I have this hard money deal, and they want you to lend $1 billion against air, right? Talk about what makes a great broker from your 33 years of experience.
Yeah, it's a good question. First, I'll say most brokers that I meet will always ask me, well, what do you do? What are you looking for? Give me the box so that I could go out and find you deals. And Jeff, you heard me say this a million times. Unlike most lenders, I don't ever back myself into a box. I don't have a box. If a real estate transaction makes sense, and I'm telling you, there's few situations where we cannot make sense of a real estate transaction. What do I mean by that? Many times, if I'm able to at least get on the phone with a sponsor or a borrower, we start to ask questions. Usually we'll find out that that borrower owns other real estate. They may be looking for 100% loan to value on a particular parcel with zero skin in the game. Well, most people won't take the time out to say, well, why don't we talk to the sponsor? Maybe they own a few other pieces of real estate where we can cross collateralize, or maybe take a pledge of their equity interest in that other real estate so that we can get you the highest loan to value on the target property that you're looking to acquire. And so the first thing I will say to any broker that's looking to bring transactions to anyone is, don't try to back into a box. Don't, when you're looking at all the boxes from all the other lenders out there, and believe me, I mean, we've seen everything from all the share states, Fundrise, and Peer Streets, and we know them all. We've dealt with them all, where they're constantly giving a blast, 100% LTV or fix and flip, 90%, 65% total loan to cost. We're not in a box. Try to make sense of the real estate. If you could make sense of what the sponsor is truly looking for, if it's time, maybe time is more precious to closing in a timely manner, is more precious than interest rate sensitivity. There's all different ways and all different scenarios to look at. So that's number one. Also, take the time to understand the deal. Don't just go and find random transactions and start sending them to 15 different lenders, hoping that something will stick, because it may work for the first 2 or 3 times that you do that. But I'm telling you, for the busier lenders and for people who are really funding these type of transactions, you're very, very quickly going to lose credibility, which is, and Jeff, I'll give you a plug, which is why we've been so successful, and Jeff has been so successful in working with us for the last 15, 20 years, is when I get a deal from Jeff, it's clearly laid out: property address, borrower, credit, what he's looking for. Here's the story. Here's why he needs the money. Already spoke to him. The only thing Jeff usually does wrong is he tries to price it out without talking to me first. But put that aside, as far as all the due diligence goes, it's done. And that's, to me, the most crucial aspect about getting a deal from any broker. And even if you're not sending a transaction or a deal to Fairbridge, I'm telling you as a broker that your credibility will skyrocket if you could start sending lenders true credit memos with all of the information and do a lot of the upfront work. Obviously, we always still do our due diligence. We have our analysts going in and confirming everything that we're being told and everything that is on the paper. But to at least get that initial view is so helpful. And it also helps all the parties involved, because then I could give you a quick yes, quick no. Hey, I want to see this, and just get a lot more information.
Guys, I just wanted to also run down like a process. I'm going to tell you this from my perspective. Now, why don't I just join a hard money company or a bridge lender company and be direct? And again, I've been that with a couple companies, including John's company, right? In this case, in this type of market environment we're in, right? It's an interesting dynamic because I'm fully independent, right? And when I take a deal, I have to look at it from a fully independent standpoint where I 100% have to protect my client, the borrower, because that's really who I work for. But then simultaneously, I also have to 100% protect my lending partners, such as John and his fund, right? And what that does is that gives me a true way to look at a deal from both perspectives. What's the risk? What's the reward? What's the upside? What's the downside? And why does this deal make sense? And I'll give you a perfect example on a scenario that I'm going to be honest with you. The morning of the closing that we had scheduled just back in November, I think it was the day before Thanksgiving, I actually had to participate in a deal, and I wired John $45,000 to do a deal where the borrower was only putting 10% down. Her lender dropped the ball. And again, it is what it is, right? So like, I'm a big believer in, you got to put your money where your mouth is. If I'm asking John to take outside the box risk, I should share in that outside the box risk, right? And some of you may not be in a position to cut a check for $45,000 or even $5,000. But the whole point of it is, whenever you do a deal, especially with someone else's money, you have to make sure that money's protected, right? And I have a relationship with John where I think he knows that I protect his money, and I'm not going to put him in a position where he thinks I'm not protecting his money, because I want him to help me close more deals and be more of a resource to my market and my network. And I want to be able to laugh with him in the trenches. And then when we get out of the trenches, be able to have a nice meal or a nice sit down and discuss how we were able to get a deal done that someone else couldn't do, or how we were able to get a deal done in 24 hours where the average turnaround time is 2 to 3 weeks, right? So you have to really take a professional stance on this game. Again, you are wearing multiple hats, but at the end of the day, borrowers, they come and go. Having a true relationship with a money capital source, that's invaluable, because that money never goes away. And the right people are willing to get outside their box to help you look like a hero. And John's helped me look like a hero numerous times.
Yeah, we were just to add to that, and Jeff, I actually forgot about that deal, but it's a great point where you did step up to the plate. But we have, with our company, probably 15 or 20 brokers where same thing. I mean, these brokers have been with us for 15, 20, some even 30 years, where they could send us a transaction and we understand the value of brokers. I was brought up in the broker industry, so I truly understand the value of brokers. I want that repeat business. I'm not a fly-by-night lender. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. So for me to continuously get the deal flow, we are consistently taking, I don't want to say taking risk, but we will take specific risk with certain brokers and look outside of the box to really get a transaction done and a transaction finished. Because again, we know that number one, that broker is going to go to bat for us if that deal goes into default. We're fully aware that deal is going to a default, and we have right now, my fund consists of 16 individuals. Out of the 16 individuals, 14 are lawyers. So defaults don't scare us. We kind of understand defaults. We have a whole fund dedicated to just defaulted type loans. So we get it. So bring us deals. We'd love to.
What type of, before we open it up to questions, what type of specific assets do you look at, and what type of assets do you completely avoid, such as the primary residence home or co-op, for example? Touch on what assets that you're actually looking for, and also really what you're, I'm going to say the term minimum. Obviously, again, like we're going to do a $300,000 deal that I'm going to send you when we get off this call, right? And then we're going to get it done because the economics make sense on it, right? And it's more of just one of those deals that we do to get marketed. No one else is going to do, right? Talk a little bit about what your initial parameters look like, so that way everyone on this call and everyone that watches it knows, hey, if I hear I have this scenario, got to call Jeff, got to call John.
Yeah, listen, I'll talk a little bit macro and then kind of bring it down micro, because it's a loaded question, right? What do I like? I like anything that makes sense. I mean, I can end it right there. Bring me a real estate transaction if I can make sense and I can understand it, and there's a good cap rate, stabilization, it's a great deal. But what do I like? I mean, in this, it's not much different. If you're studying the markets, we all see what's going on in the markets over the last couple of months. So I continue to, and my fund, Fairbridge, continues to gravitate to residential, multifamily, industrial assets. That's the core assets that I am gravitating to right now, both because, number one, of supply constraint, there's more demand for reasonably priced housing and last mile industrial facilities than there are properties available. And also early stages of value transfer from office and retail to residential and industrial assets. I also gravitate, and I think, Jeff, I'm not certain if I did this deal with you, I don't remember, but I love the e-commerce warehouse space. Great space.
We haven't touched
right
it yet, no.
Great space right now. E-commerce will continue to outpace retail. I have no doubt about that. The end result of ever increasing online sales means greater need for well-located industrial logistic facilities. So anytime we get a hold of some of these facilities, we jump on it. We just closed a great one in Massachusetts. We're on our second one in Massachusetts, and continue to gravitate towards these type of industrial assets. Also, one of the things that a lot of people are talking about, and we continue to watch it and we continue to talk about it, is remote work. I think remote working will permanently alter office and residential real estate. I believe that people now have greater control over their time and flexibility and where they choose to work and where they choose to live. Because of that, I expect many people would choose to move from the high cost of living cities like New York and DC to low cost living cities with much milder winters. And I've seen this. We've been doing a bunch of deals, way more than we've ever done before, just in the last 3 to 4 years in the Sun Belt. And I've noticed the Sun Belt right now continues to outperform all other locations with population growth, job growth, housing affordability, warmer weather, and we're seeing all of the demographic shifts. And just to bring it full circle, I think with remote work here to stay, I believe the area is only that much more likely to attract new residents. And most residents are coming from the very expensive cities such as New York, LA, DC, and we're seeing it. We're seeing it as far as deal flow. We're seeing it with respect to home prices. We're seeing it even something as crazy as when we first started lending in the Sun Belt area. We were doing loans, just to kind of go back a little bit more, our loans were being priced at 14, 13%. And just because of the competition, now we're down to 9, 10%, mostly in the Sun Belt states.
Guys, also, so let me give you a couple of examples of deals that we've closed creatively, so then your mind can start, really tapping in, right? And I have this motto and concept, and Greg Morgan will tell you this. We could have him hop on in a couple seconds and tell you a little bit about, what we've done together and what, 9 months ago when he hired me to be his coach. I keep bringing him up because he's the perfect example of what everyone can and should aspire to be in this business is, you need to go where you're needed. Right. And the best example I can give you of that is this. When I was 25, 26, 27, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go to Manhattan and I'm going to kill it. I'm going to kill it. No one's going to outwork me. Right. And then I said, holy shit, there's a bank in every corner here. Right. And yeah, that's true. However, in certain areas where other bankers don't like to go, or it might not be as desirable of an area, or you might have to, like John said earlier, get your hands dirty. I always went where I was needed, not where I wanted to be, because that's where the money is, right? And I bring up Greg Morgan because the first day we ever got on a call, I told him about the deals that we were doing. And just last night, he asked to have a call with a couple of his clients. And we had that call. And I said, we need to actually have the call because I need to figure out what these clients are actually looking for. And by 9 o'clock last night, we had 3 deals. His wheels were spinning. Woke up today and he said, hey, I have a builder who's about 90% complete, finished with a project. He's got a 550 credit score because he was delinquent on a timeshare. He bought the property all cash. Again, he's 90% done. He's like $200,000 to have some breathing room before he goes and sells his property for $1 million, right? Now, again, maybe we get the loan amount up a little bit, but the whole point of it is Greg Morgan does $60 million a year in residential mortgage business. He hasn't even tapped into the hard money world yet, right? Now, if you help a builder out of a situation that's a jam, who do you think that builder is going to give his residential mortgage business to? Someone else? No, because you just helped keep him afloat instantly, seamlessly, painlessly. Now we go back to 2017. We had a deal here in Jersey City. It was a 6 or 8 unit rental building that was vacant. Clients bought a fix and flip. The contractor took the money. And I called John up and said, look, we got to help these guys out. I have to be right here on this rate. And we did a $975,000 hard money mortgage across a multifamily vacant building and a fix and flip, right? Cross collateralized it. So it was one loan across 2 properties. The value was like 2.2 million. And John did that deal for me, not only because I asked him to do it, but because the deal made economic sense from an asset standpoint, right? Another story, I was boarding the plane, coming home from a speaking engagement in Tampa. I got a call, this deal has to close tomorrow. I said, let me call you right back. I called John, I emailed him the details. By the time I landed, that deal was already scheduled to close the following day, right? And again, just recently, we closed the deal in 3 days for someone that got jammed up with another lender. So you got to understand that if you understand the puzzle and the pieces to the puzzle, and you show John that puzzle, John's going to put the glue behind that puzzle. The problem is when you piece a puzzle together and you miss key ingredients or you miss the right pieces, and now it becomes more work than any potential economic reward, John loses interest, and any other reputable lender is going to lose interest, right? Because now you're wasting time. So packaging the deal, understanding the value of the deal, and also understanding the why of the deal. Why are you going to break your chops to close a $200,000 deal for somebody when no one else can do it? It's to grow your overall brand of business. The goal is to become the expert in this business. And if your goal is not to become the expert in this business, my opinion, respectfully, is you shouldn't be in this business. Because most of my business for the past 5 years, and a lot of the business I've done with John, were from other people dropping the ball, lying, not telling the truth, not doing their job properly, taking those deals, and then John and I closing those deals. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do you want to be the person to go out there and drop the ball and have John and I look like the heroes? Or do you want to learn the business the right way, structure the deals the right way, close the deals with John and I, and also be a hero? You drop the ball once inside your market, you're not getting any more residential business or any business, right? So you have to figure out what deals to take and what deals to walk away from. You also need to know when to not take no for an answer and when to take no for an answer. And John and I will tell you flat out, and John can touch on this, we've had some very heated exchanges professionally, because at the end of the day, it's our job to fight for our clients. But you have to know when sometimes a deal is not a good deal. John's the first person that wants to close the deal. But when John says no, unless you have some very compelling arguments or tell him that you're going to wire him $45,000 to do a deal, he's probably respectfully going to bow out. But in the heart of it, John loves deals, and John wants to get the deal done. So if John says no, you need to defer to his experience and his professionalism and respect that. We're going to open this up now to questions. We got a lot of people on the call. I'm sure you guys are all located all throughout the country, which is great. Irene, I really appreciated your interaction yesterday. Do you want to take yourself off mute, or Maddie or somebody? Do you guys want to hop on and start asking John or myself any types of questions? Greg Morga, you're welcome to as well, obviously. Bill, Chad, Gary.
I'll get in there.
Get in there, Bill.
Okay. So I think I got a handle on what you're talking about there, John. Is there to save from having to remember what I'm looking for before I make the call to Jeff or to you? Do you have some kind of checklist? Make sure you check these 5 things before we go any further, or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. A checklist is much different than a box, right? So
yeah,
we could easily put together a quick checklist. Hey, find out these answers before sending us a deal, and it at least allows us to dive into the deal and give you a quick yes and a quick no. And I'll give you just a couple of examples. I always like to know upfront. Number one, how much skin in the game does a sponsor have in a deal? What's the exit strategy? Is there an exit strategy in place? And then also, I always like to, hard money is, to me, there's always a story. What makes hard money, I like to say, is there's always a value add component to bridge lending. And I need to understand the story. I always like to hear what got a sponsor to the point where they're looking for this type of financing and this strategy. And it really has to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, and by the way, some of the questions that make complete sense to me, well, some of the answers, I should say, are just because of timing. We don't want to deal with banks. Banks take way too long. I mean, it doesn't always have to be bad credit or violations or I can't get institutional financing. I really don't care what the answer is, as long as it makes sense and I could understand the entire story.
So let me further that a little bit. I have one of my realtor friends that called me a few days ago, and he said, "Hey, do you have hard money?" I said, "Yes, I do." I figured I'd find it when I needed it, and I know him well enough to know that he's all about speed. I know the guy; he's got great credit. He's he's fine, but he's looking for very, very speedy stuff. I know he has a partner that they are looking at fix and flips. Mm-hmm. Is 100,000, 200,000 residential flip in your wheelhouse, or not so much?
It is. So real fast, because of the size that we are at now, we have all different programs with different silos. So yes, we do everything from your typical fix and flips that goes into one silo. And just to give you the financial engineering of it, I'll take a step back so you could understand the big picture, what I call the behind the scenes, Bill. So on the typical bridge lending hard money transactions, that's financed right through our REIT. The very, very quick, we could close deals in 24 hours. Not usually, always, we're waiting on the borrower, the title, or the attorneys. You're never waiting on us. We're ready to go. And that's all funded directly from our REIT. That sits right on our balance sheets. We have hundreds of millions of dollars in our REIT to work with. When it comes to the smaller fix and flips, yes, same thing. We can close transactions as quickly as possible. We could still close, again, assuming you have title, appraisals, reports, everything that we need, legal docs. On a fix and flip, that's maybe $100,000, $200,000. Historically, what we would do for that is draw down from one of our warehouse lines to fund a fix and flip and immediately sell the paper. So it's a little bit different on that. Now, why do I want to do that? Well, again, this is business decisions. If you just model it out, giving everybody on this call a little bit of the what I call the backstage pass on how this works. If you model it out, I don't want to hold fix and flip short-term 9-10% paper. It just doesn't really make a lot of money for us. But think about this for a minute. I have warehouses. We have $500 million just in fix and flip every month that we could draw down at, goes up it's based off of prime, but let's just say it's 6%. If you're giving me a $200,000 fix and flip, well, I could draw down at 6%, fund that fix and flip, and the next day sell that paper. And if I funded it at 9%, just do the math. I made, on an IRR basis, I just made 300% for my fund by doing it like that.
The economics behind that? if you don't, that's fine. Basically, John's taking capital 200, let's just say $200,000 at 6%, which comes out to a half a point a month, right? Taking that money and then the next day selling it, and let's just say he makes $6,000 for argument's sake, right? So it cost him maybe $200 in interest carry, whatever that number comes out to, right? And then on a profit standpoint, 24 hours getting a wire for say $6,000. So that's where the margins are. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah, that's it. That's explained brilliantly. I mean, there's a couple of different ways to do it, right? Like Jeff said, you could sell it, get your money right there. You could do yield spread. So we're just ticking away with yield spread on a monthly basis, where we're getting, like I said, if I'm drawing down at 6%, selling it at 9%, well, now I'm getting a 3% a month. I'm sorry, 3% a year just on the difference for having no money out. So 3% actually equates to 300% because you have no money out of pocket. So when you start to do the algorithms and model all this out on the fix and flip product, it just makes a lot of sense to either securitize or sell that paper. And then we also have a whole non-QM, right? There's a whole segment of mortgages that, well, maybe they're not fix and flip, but maybe they're not exactly bridge hard. So we put that into what we call the soft hard or the middle basket, which is more of our non-QM. And we also have a segregated warehouse lines and separate funding sources for non-QM. So take all of that under the umbrella. I'm confident that if you should call Jeff or I with a transaction, we're pretty confident we could find a home, again, as long as it all makes some sense. Bill, I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it does, John. Thank you.
Bill, basically any type of alternate lending, hard money, bridge, construction, outside the box, John's always my first call, A, because of our relationship, B, because there's an outlet. So rather than going to 15, 20 different people, sending 15, 20 different packages out, getting stroked around, joked around, jerked around, looking like a knucklehead in front of your client, just go to the main source. That's always been my model, is just go to the main source that has that track record. Like if the game's on the line, and in this market, every deal you get, you got to treat it like bases loaded, bottom of the ninth, down one, full count. If you take that approach to this business, you want the guy up at bat that, more often than not comes through, like Captain Clutch, right? And a lot of people make the mistake, unfortunately, of shopping deals to death. And I can't even tell you how many times that clients have told me, I'm only working with you. I'm only working with you. I'm not shopping around. I'll have a fee agreement signed and everything. And I sent the deal to John, and he's like, yeah, we saw this 2 months ago. I'm like, that's funny. The guy told me he's not working with anybody, and he signed my exclusive fee agreement. So how is
it happened last week?
Yeah, it literally happened. Yeah, exactly.
I saw the deal that you mentioned, but it's a great point, Jeff. To all the brokers, this is a very small industry. Although you may think it's very large and the competition is out there, it's a small industry. I'm confident in saying most deals cross our desk. We know all the brokers in the industry, number one. And as Jeff will tell you, not only do we know all the brokers, we also fund the majority of the hard money lenders out there. So we have right now 30 or 40 what we call white label agreements with a bunch of other hard money lenders out there. So, I mean, we've been in the industry so long, we're managing a lot of money. We just partnered, for those of you who know the private equity world, our partner and a 5% owner of our fund is Oak Tree Capital, which is the largest private equity fund in the world. So needless to say, we've seen most transactions. And even if you're going to other lenders, I'd like to say we probably either saw the deal or we're probably funding that hard money lender that you went to anyway.
And guys, like I said, keep in mind that as much business as John is and John does, John's a real person, right? So like, how am I able to get John on a call? It's because, again, our track record speaks for itself. And, when you guys come as an extension of me, John's automatically going to give you that white glove service, right? Because John's accountable to me and I'm accountable to John, and we have a mutual respect for each other. So if we can get national deals and if we can help you guys survive and look like the heroes in this business, like that's what we're here for. So don't get kind of blown away by, oh, I don't know anything. Oh, my deal might be too small. If it's too small, we'll tell you it's too small. If it's too small, we may even tell you where to go to get the deal done. right? But like, this is still and always will be an interpersonal relationship, handshake, referral network. And one thing I also want to say is why I send John all my business first crack is I trust John. If there's a dispute over money, John does the right thing. I don't have to chase John for a check or my wire, or I send the client, they try going around me. John's flat out told clients, like, Jeff brought me the deal. He's the broker on the deal. He's getting paid on the deal. If you don't want him to get paid, that's fine. We just won't do the deal, right? So what people do you know in this business are going to protect you and your money in your best interest? Not many. So to me, that's more valuable than, oh, what's your rate in points? Oh, that's too high. At least I know my money's protected and I know the deal's going to get done.
Yeah, if I could just add, I've always taken the approach that brokers offer a very, very valuable asset to our business. And my clients, I view sponsors and borrowers, yes, those are my clients, but most sponsors and borrowers, with the exception of a handful that are doing business and business, it's great to get those 1 or 2 or 3 deals. Brokers give me all my deals. The majority of our deal flow is through the broker network. So I actually view the broker as my client, and brokers will always be protected. We could either put your fee into our fee, we could put it separate. Like we work with brokers and understand that brokers in this industry are the end all be all. We get it.
So, Greg Moore, I see you took yourself off mute. Greg, meet John Lettera. Greg sent us the deal earlier that I told you I'd send you as soon as we get off this call. Greg, if you have any questions for John, go ahead and ask. Feel free to meet him. And obviously, we'll be doing a lot of business together.
John, thanks for letting me do my first deal with you. You didn't even know it was me. It's okay.
Nice to meet you, Greg.
Thanks so much for coming on, learning a little bit more. I mean, Jeff has definitely helped me the last couple of months. There's always room for growth. I do have a successful residential side in the, mortgage financing, but I've always I like to be a jack of all trades. I think it's better. I think you learn in all aspects of your job too, when you know all the different sides, right? So one of my main goals within the next 12 months was to get more into the other side of financing. I like to call it hard money, commercial, non-QM, what the commercial side is really doing, right? Because then you're not market dependent on business. So John, someone already asked like what kind of information you need. I know it's based on the situation, but I guess I would ask you, generally, what are you looking for in order to be okay with the project? Is it more asset related? Is it more experience related? Is it compensating factors like, hey, is your dichotomy different for each single person? Like, what makes you feel more comfortable with the deal? Because then that gives me a better approach when I'm looking for deals to say, hey, we have a solution for you, and more than likely it will go through.
Yeah, again, it's a good question. And I go back to what I said, that rather than putting myself in a box, I'm looking at the entire deal in its totality. So let me even just take, Greg, a bit of a broader technique, a broader approach at answering the question, and then kind of hone in. And I mentioned what I like, right? I like residential, multifamily, industrial, last mile type assets. So why is that? Well, generally speaking, what we do is we tend to start by looking at the broader macroeconomic trends and how those trends translate into physical real estate. I always try to answer the question, what will be the primary economic driver over the next few decades? How will that impact demand, lack of demand, or certain types of properties? And once I get a feel for that macroeconomic and what's going on in the industry, then I dive into the microeconomic trends. And the reason I wanted to take a broader approach is because you may come to me and say, I have this last mile warehouse in Brooklyn, New York, and they want to use it for refrigeration of, and I'm giving you like a real example, right, of refrigeration of pizza dough. Well, you may sit back and go, what the hell? Oh, and by the way, they want 100% loan to value. Well, most people or most lenders will sit back and go, no way, it'll never happen. But just understanding what's going on in the macro trend and understanding that there is such a demand and such a shortage of refrigerating warehouse and those type of assets, well, on a deal like that, I probably will go to a 95 loan to value because I understand Brooklyn. I understand what's going on in that market. I understand the warehouses, and I'm following the macroeconomic trends, even in this inflationary environment that we're in. And I would probably fund that deal. So this is my long answer of, again, just reiterating the fact that, real estate is a full contact sport. I know Jeff loves his football and all these sports analogies. Like, that's the best way I could describe it. It's a full contact sport. You need to understand the assets. We are not sitting around going through all the algorithms, BPOs, appraisals, and then sitting back and cutting a hope note and keeping our fingers crossed. Like, we're going out, we're walking the property, we're looking at the asset, we're studying macro and micro trends. And as long as we could make sense of the story and what's going on in the environment, then we will do that deal. We'll do the deal. So anything, and I'll end it with this. Like, if you have anything where you think, well, this could be a deal, and Jeff does this all the time, and I love it. He'll say, may have something, may not, but I just want to run it by you.
Can I just add one more thing to that?
Please.
You kind of proven my point. I was kind of trying to go rhetorical here. So, what you said is what I kind of thought you were going to say. It's really more of a common sense, lenient approach on guidelines, right? So, guys, anyone that's on the call right now, if you've been watching the market the last couple of days, even the last couple of weeks, loans are going to get tougher in the residential side. It's going to be harder to get a deal to work. I just had a borrow, for example, today, guys. The guy makes $180,000 a year. He's got more than 20% down. And the house that he's trying to buy, I had to quote it, and it was $4,500 a month. And it was not really that large of a ask price for the area he was looking in Monmouth County, right? It was, around $600,000. And he said, whoa, that's a high payment. I can't afford that. Well, how many people do you think can afford to buy that house with mortgage financing in the residential world? If a guy with $180,000 and putting 20%, $180,000 salary and putting 20% plus down are going to afford those type of homes, and how many homes are lesser priced in that area that people can actually win with lower down payments. So what I'm trying to say is like, you got a guy here that he's using a common sense approach from a macro standpoint, which means that you have an easier chance of getting more deals in a different market that other people aren't focusing on.
I think the other important factor is most lenders don't lend on vacant properties at all. A lot of deals that John and I have done were vacant non-cash flowing properties, right? And it comes from people have big brother to answer to, where John's like, look, I'm confident that this warehouse is worth $1 million vacant. If it's occupied, it's worth $10 million as an example, right? I'll gladly lend $600,000 into it. If you go to the site I posted in the chat, John and I closed a $500,000 deal on a startup business for a guy that had zero revenue, bought a property all cash, renovated it, had no income on paper, and we gave him $500,000, and we, took back 12 months of payments. So that would obviously not be a cash flow issue. No revenue. Okay, well, we're going to take 12 payments up front. We'll see you in 12 months to get you out of this loan, but no one else is giving him a penny, let alone, giving him a penny plus taking 12 months payments back, right? So keep that in mind. Commercial properties, new startup businesses, as long as there's real estate involved, hotels, condo complexes, stalled construction projects. Like, John and I have a deal that we're waiting for a bankruptcy approval on, a $30 million deal we're doing in Texas. Guys, like a $30 million deal puts hundreds of thousands of dollars in your pocket on one deal, right? So like
million this year.
Right. So like that those are things that, these deals are available in each one of your marketplaces. The key is just becoming that person that's, hey, yeah, I saw Bill from Atlanta get this tough deal done. We got to call Bill. Next thing you know, Bill's getting all the action. Now he's getting residential business. You guys got to start putting yourself out there more and really start thinking outside the box.
I'll tell you one quick story to that point, Jeff. And Jeff, you know what I'm speaking about. A broker about 4 years ago brought me a transaction, and I'm sitting there with my two partners, and we look at the transaction, and it was a ground up new construction in Paterson, New Jersey. And without even really diving into it, I said, that's probably not for us. I don't really know Paterson. What I do know about it, Really haven't heard great things, ground up construction. The broker begged me to just come to Patterson and meet the sponsor. And after some pushback, and we decided, I said, let me go take a ride as a courtesy, because I've done millions and millions of dollars with this particular broker. Great example. And I tell this story all the time, and I have no problem taking the blame and knowing when I'm wrong. When I met the borrower and spent half a day looking at what he's done, getting to know his business a little bit better, I loved the sponsor. And we now have in Patterson, New Jersey, with this one sponsor, $80 million in loans, just in Patterson alone. I remind you, just in Patterson, $80 million out with this one sponsor, just because I took the time, listened to my broker, went, sat, and spent the day with the gentleman. So just another great example of how you really got to get out there, meet the sponsors, meet the people, because I wasn't thrilled with the asset. But in this particular situation, I was completely and utterly sold with the sponsor, and it's been working out amazing for both parties. We've also put the sponsor in a whole different trajectory. In fact, we were just at, well, not just, but a couple of months ago, we got invited to the governor of New Jersey's home and had a private dinner with the sponsor and the governor of New Jersey, just because he loves what we're doing with Patterson.
So guys, also a lot of lenders have what's called saturation. John doesn't have that type of bucket he has to, be conscious of. So if John wants to lend $1 trillion in the Bronx, he can and will, right? So keep that in mind. Again, at the end of the day, you guys, your wheels should be spinning. You're probably like, I'm sitting in Jersey City right now, and granted, it's right next to New York City. So if I look to my left, I actually see the Freedom Tower. If I look across the street, I see a brand new condo ground up development going up. If I look to my right, I see like an 8 to 10 unit apartment building, right? So like right in my neighborhood where I live, there are 3 different asset classes that I could get financing for, right? So like when you guys all look out your window right now, or if you're driving, look to your left and right, how many McDonald's, Burger Kings, bank buildings, like that's the wheelhouse where you make money. And those people still need the financing, right? And Greg Morgan can tell you this 100% again, 100% fact. I could even pull it up. Client said last night over a text, Jeff, I wish I met you a month ago, because I'm getting a commercial deal on a condo at 7.5% and 2 points. And I said, well, unfortunately, it's not a month ago. We'd probably be at like 5.25%, 5.25% and 2 points, but nobody really has a good go-to commercial person, hard money person. You guys got to become that person. And the sooner you do that, the sooner you'll be happy and see your world flourish. Irina, I see you took yourself off mute. You want to go ahead and ask John a question?
Yes, please. 2 questions. The first one is, typically, what's the term of the deals that you do, John? And then the other question is suggestions for how to source these deals.
Sure. The term anywhere between 12, 18, 24, 36 months. And it's very important to understand that bridge lending, to be used very, very successfully, is really tailored for short term. Maturity should not go past the 3-year mark. Now, that being said, what differentiates our fund from many other funds is we also have, and I'll preface this by saying, and the brokers get paid on each and everything I'm saying, but we could start off with a bridge fund, eventually get that person into a soft hard money fund, and then even get them into an exit takeout. So some of the transactions that we do can start off with a 12-month bridge loan, then go into a 24-month soft money loan, and then eventually put them into a 15 or 30-year commercial loan. We even have a program now where we're doing 40-year commercial loans. So just to answer and bring it full circle, Irene, on a typical bridge hard money loan, though, you historically see maturities anywhere from 12 to 24 months. That's a typical maturity on a loan. And then if you have someone that new construction, for example, if it's going to take a little bit longer, there's usually extension options for an additional point or an additional hike in the interest rate. As far as sourcing these deals, the best way to source deals I've learned is to is to, number one, just get out there in the market, talk to lawyers, accountants, real estate brokers. And also what I've also had very, very much success in sourcing these deals is just going to different conferences. Conferences truly allow you to just meet other professionals in the industry, and one person may lead to another person, and really use conferences to enhance your network. And then lastly, what's been a phenomenal tool for me over the last really just 2 to 3 years, when COVID made it very difficult to get to these conferences, is LinkedIn has been a phenomenal source of deal flow for us as well.
John, just so you know, Irina's out in Denver, right, Irina?
Yes, yes,
Colorado?
yes.
Oh, we're doing a deal out there right now. I love that area. Love it.
There's a lot going on for
There
sure.
is so much going on. So my partner was just in Denver last week looking at a very large transaction. We went from Texas to Denver to Montana, actually, and we're closing a loan in each of the areas.
Okay. So when you mentioned LinkedIn, just finding people to connect with and reaching out to them?
And joining groups. So joining a couple of these real estate groups, joining a few of the, I'm not certain of the terminology, Jeff would know better than I, but just kind of like going through all the different, I don't want to call them chat rooms, but they have these groups on LinkedIn. And if you could join the right group, there's usually speakers in those groups. And what I've done is every group that I speak to, I usually tell them to link in with me, and then people will constantly send me deals through LinkedIn. And then for brokers, it's just great because you get to see everyone who's in the group. So it's always a great thing to kind of, as you're listening to a speaker, all the brokers are usually linking in with each other. I could see it happening right on the screen. It's just a great way to meet people and also get deal flow.
Guys, another great way, again, in this type of market with inflation and supply chain issues and rates rising and every other, unreliable human you have to deal with, unfortunately, just driving around, 100-mile radius of where you're located. I guarantee if you get in your car right now, I don't care where you are in America, you will see a stopped, stalled construction project, right? And more often than not, there's a maintenance crew there or workers there. Go and be like, hey, what's going on here? I can't tell you. Very few things at this stage in my life burn me, right? Like when I say burn me, like burn my insides. There's nothing worse than hearing somebody does a deal in your market on a building that you drive by every day, And it's like, man, that's my neighborhood. That's my turf. That's my backyard. How is this person doing this deal, right? And obviously, it's not a realistic expectation to do every deal in your market. But when you're looking at something and you don't go and knock on that door, or go and shake that person's hand, or go and just ask, hey, what's going on over here? And someone else does $1 million or $10 million or $80 million loan, that should sting you a little bit, right? So how do you not let those opportunities slip right through your fingers? It's in your backyard. You want every deal in your marketplace. And that's what I believe will still be the best way of getting business in this market, is driving around and finding those deals in person.
Well, also, just to your point, Jeff and Irene, I also think that, let's face it, inflation drives collateral values in real estate. And this environment, this inflationary environment that we're in right now, and I'm bullish on it. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in the lending business and I'm in the real estate business. Just look at economics and what has happened in every inflationary and recessionary market. Fortunately, real estate happens to be one of the few assets that tends to be both resilient in downturns and offer strong performance in inflationary markets. So just as we experienced in the last couple of months, I believe that residential, multifamily, industrial real estate assets are some of the most well-positioned to hold their values in this environment. These asset classes are experiencing strong long-term demand today and have historically performed well. So go out there, look at these assets, and I could get into, if you want, why I believe that and sort of get into the economics of that. I'm happy to. Jeff knows I sometimes tend to profess too much, so I'm trying to hold back right now. But
and you have an open floor, you got the open stage. But if anybody has any other questions, again, you guys are located all over the place. Feel free to take yourself off mute. We are going to wrap this up pretty quickly. But if you have questions, ask now. You have full attention from John and myself. If not, obviously we can wrap it up and come back to this at a later date. But 100% recommend everybody taking advantage of these. Hey, Chad. Chad, you've got the floor. I see you took yourself off mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yep, there you go.
Hey, Jeff, John, really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Chad.
I've been in residential here for a couple of decades now, making the move to commercial. I guess what I'm trying to understand, just really, what has helped is just how to structure a deal, which is quite a bit different.
Chad, can you move closer to your mic? Sound like either far away or I'm not sure what's going on. If you can talk more clearly, that'd be great. So you'll have to.
Is that better?
I'm 35 now, so my ears haven't been as good as they've been in the past.
I got you.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess from what it is that I've kind of noticed listening to certain things, it seems like just from a standpoint of commercial, it's like you said, John, more relationship based as opposed to residential. Everything, rate, give me your fees, it's just one and done. But as far as commercial goes, it seems like this is somebody I'm looking to work for or work with, for years to come. So as long as, they can get the deal done, rate's not nearly as important as just, how good they are at what it is that they do. Is that what you find in the commercial side?
Yeah, Chad, I'm going to apologize in advance. I heard like every other word. Jeff, I don't know if you were able to hear everything that Chad was.
So it was tough, but Chad, do me a favor, send me your address. We'll send you a microphone for the next call because we don't want to miss any valuable information coming out of your mouth. But look, it's always a relationship game. And I believe that residential now more than ever is going to be more of a relationship game as people drop the ball, right? But at the end of the day, the relationship is what gets the deal closed, gets with the accountability taken care of. That should be in every business across the board. That should be in life in general, On the commercial side, people have relationships and they have go-tos. Your goal should be to become that go-to, And I think the more people focus on relationships right now, the more you'll have a better quality of business. And it's not always about quantity. Quality usually offsets quantity. And I think John can obviously, speak to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially on commercial real estate, very important on residential, but even more so on commercial real estate. It's all about relationships, and not only relationships with your borrowers and sponsors, but if you're a broker, relationships with your lenders, because it's your credibility that's on the line. And that's something that we take very seriously with our brokers. If we're telling you that we could get this deal done, well, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I get this deal done to make you look good, because we want, as a lender, we want the brokers to just keep coming back to us. We want to be the first phone call. And if we can't do it, then I'm probably going to recommend someone to you, as I did with Jeff many times. Jeff, probably not for us, but go talk to this gentleman or this fund. They could get this done for you.
Sounds good. I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for us before we hop off?
Yeah, feel free to get me on LinkedIn. Look me up, and all my contact information is there. Happy to speak with anyone.
Let's see if we don't have anybody else. We'll cut off. John, thanks as always for taking the time out of your day to educate the market. Hopefully you'll see a nice ROI from doing this. Paul Rogers, do me a favor, take yourself off mute, show your video. I want you to ask John some questions. I know your wheels are spinning. I know you've been hitting the street right now. Hard money is also great for divorces. A lot of people have multiple assets, and John can lend to people that are going through a divorce, a bankruptcy, you name it, poor credit issues. We've done deals with clients in the high 400 credit scores, right? So, if you utilize what we're giving you and you take our weapons and you hit the streets with our weapons, no one's going to be more dangerous than you. So, Mr. Rogers, Roger that. Meet John Lettera.
Hey, John.
Hey, Paul. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you, man. Thank you for jumping on and giving us a free game. I honestly don't have any questions right now, but you're on LinkedIn, right?
Yes, I am.
And IG?
John, we're working on Instagram. We'll have John on by 2023. We're going to have to get him an account manager. Unfortunately, a lot of the old school guys still operate old school. So Instagram is one of those things that we'll have them on by next year. You guys have my word on that.
I'm glad you jumped in because I was ready to say what's IG. So.
He's busy going from the Bronx to billions. You know what I mean? Like we've got time for social media. You know.
100%. John, Paul's a worker. Paul listens. You know, unlike most, Paul takes what you tell him and he'll execute. Right. So if you told Paul, and Paul's down in Georgia, if you told him, hey, Paul, you know, you should really start targeting this. You know, I'll get a video tomorrow morning, text to me of what Paul is doing that you told him to do, right? So for someone, you know, new in this business, I respect the ability to take criticism and then apply it to the marketplace. And Paul is one of those, you know, guys that executes.
Yeah, Paul, we just closed a $14 million transaction in Atlanta, and we're looking at a $30 million transaction right next door to the one we just closed in Atlanta. And over the last 12 months, we probably, I don't even know the amount, but love Georgia. We are, I was just there last week with the exception of flying into that ridiculous airport. I always have a great time when I'm down there.
Yeah, I think it's like the largest in the world or one of the largest in the world. It's a pretty big airport and easy to get lost in.
Very easy.
Yeah.
Just to get to my rental car. By the time I land to get to my rental car, I got to take 3 trains and it's another hour.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Paul, next time John and I come down there, we'll have you pick us up and we'll grab a nice bite. Maybe we'll stop by the Falcon Stadium while we're at it.
Yeah, the Falcons, Braves, you know, Atlanta United, whatever is your speed, you know.
Listen, the goal is my goal would be to catch like a Sunday night football game, right? Yeah. Ideally, it would have to be, you know, probably end of September. Hopefully, the Braves in the World Series. I'll catch an Acuna home run, right? And then next night, go see Trey drop 40 points on somebody. So that would be my like trifecta weekend if I could plan it out.
Well, anyone who's in or near Atlanta, we're having a closing dinner in the next 3 weeks at the Porsche Museum. And Paul, Jeff, I mean, and everyone on the call, please feel free to come, but I'll definitely send you the information.
Yeah, John, if you want to send me that, I'll do that in the follow-up email blast. That'd be great.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I was actually going to add you on LinkedIn like right now. John Lettera. Okay.
Yeah, awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate it as always. John, again, thank you so much for your time and education, wisdom, and experience. And anybody else has any questions, feel free to reach out to John or myself directly. Other than that, day 2 is wrapped up. Day 3 tomorrow. Day 3 tomorrow, we will be talking all about commercial lending and financing.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Sounds good. Thank you.